What if the biggest challenges in our family businesses were not about strategy, about organization, or even market conditions? What if they were driven by invisible dynamics, dynamics inherited from the past, inherited from the founder's personality and choices, and from your family's history? In this episode, John Whittington, one of the world's leading experts in systemic work, helps us understand what really impacts performance inside our organizations. And you will see how these dynamics, hidden dynamics, might affect growth, profitability, and even family relationships. If you want to make better decisions, unlock stuck situations, and lead your company with a deeper level of clarity, I'm sure this episode might change the way you run your business. You run a family business, or you founded your own company, and deep down you can feel it. It's time to change something in your model. Give more responsibility to your teams, strengthen the resilience and performance of your company, improve your governance so that you're no longer carrying everything alone in an increasingly complex environment, while preserving what makes your family's legacy unique. But how do you transform your company without losing its essence? How do you bring your shareholder family on board and help everyone find their right place? Welcome to the Family Business Next Generation podcast. My name is Thomas Fio. I'm an executive coach, and for over than 15 years, I've been helping business leaders successfully navigate their transformation. In this podcast, you will find conversations with inspiring leaders who dared to challenge the status quo and practical ideas and tools to help you improve your business. My intention is to inspire you to develop your company and leave your mark. Ready? Let's get started. Hello, everyone, and welcome to this new episode. Today is a special episode for me because you are going to meet someone who has inspired me a lot. But before I introduce my guest, let me say a few words about the topic that we are going to cover today. If you run or maybe are involved in a family business, you probably know this. Beyond organization charts, strategies, market decisions, our companies are also shaped by something less visible. They are shaped by their history, by the personality of the founder, by the influence of former generations, by relationships between brothers and sisters sometimes, by key events, sometimes accidents that happened in the life of the company. In other words, what happens in our family organizations is often driven by deeper dynamics. Dynamics that you can feel, but sometimes that are difficult to explain. For example, that could be tensions that seem to come back again and again. That could be problems that persist despite the right decisions were taken. Today we are going to explore these invisible dynamics and how leaders can develop a systemic approach to better understand and navigate them. In my experience, this systemic perspective can be a real game changer for you guys. As a CEO or as a family member involved in the business, it can help you to resolve complex situations. It can help you to make decisions with a deeper understanding of what is really happening in your organization. It can create the conditions for your company to remain healthy on a long-term perspective. Let me give you an example that came recently through my work with a client. During the coaching process with this client, we discovered that the founder of the company, a long time ago, actually 90 years ago, had a very peculiar relationship with money. And little by little, it became clear that the company's persistent difficulty to generate profits was, in a way, linked to that legacy. It is as if this invisible glass ceiling was there and it was difficult to overcome by the team. I first explored this very amazing topic in a previous episode in December with Vincent Monziol, who is CEO of a family company called Tournaire, an episode in French, of course, but I invite you to listen to this episode. And today we are going to go deeper in this perspective. And to have this conversation, I have the privilege to have a very special guest with me today. He is, according to me, one of the leading international specialists in this area. I have the pleasure to welcome John Whittington. John is the founder of Coaching Constellation, an organization that is offering trainings in systemic coaching all around the world, in France, New Zealand, Australia, the Netherlands, a lot of countries. And he's also the founder of this company. And he wrote a book that is now in its third edition. And the book, the name is Systemic Coaching and Constellations. In recent years, John has focused a lot on founders and family businesses. And personally, I had the opportunity to follow several trainings with his team and to attend two masterclasses about my family business that he led in the last years. So I'm really excited to go further on this topic with you. And John is currently writing a new book about founder and family businesses. So today, ladies and gentlemen, we will get a preview of some of his research, and that's really exciting. Hello, John. Thank you for being there after this long introduction.
Thomas, thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, welcome. Really happy and to be with you. And so I just said that you are currently writing a book. I heard that the title of the book would be The Origin Story. Why this
well, it
title,
is now.
John? Why?
Yes. Yeah. Thank you for that generous introduction. Yeah. So, across all my work with founders and family businesses and in my own self-discovery and my own personal and professional development journey, I've really come to what sounds like a startlingly obvious conclusion when you say it, but that our origin story as human beings, in other words, our experience of our first system of belonging. So that's really what systemic means. It means just the understanding of system relational fields of belonging. And the first and most potent one is the family, our experience in our family of origin, the place we occupy, the way we find or don't find our authority, voice, and role. Directly influences whether we're likely to become a founder in the first place, and certainly then how we lead organizations that we are the founder of. So the childhood experience of the founder, and that I would include also the social and cultural systems of origin that influence them, and then the origins of the organization that they begin. So both of those origin stories and where they meet in particular, the personal and the organizational, is what I'm interested in. And you talk about research, makes me nervous because it sounds like I'm an academic and I'm just a humble practitioner, really. My research is from direct experience, really. I've spent all my life, in my early professional life, working for founders and working for family businesses as an employee. So I know
from the inside.
How challenging and how rewarding it can be. It's like the rest of life, both joyful and painful. And then I've spent the last 20 years as a coach with a particular focus on coaching founders and family businesses. And I have a portfolio of clients that I've actually walked alongside many of them for more than 10 or 15 years, because it's really a commitment to lifelong learning and development, and the life of a founder or a family business is never simple. If it is, you probably don't need to talk to me or you, or listen to this podcast. But life is complicated in those systems. And then the third sort of axis of my research, as you've already touched on, my preferred way of working is illuminating system dynamics through systemic constellations, so in workshops. And I've just found that the reason I'm still doing it kind of 25 years later is because I'm learning all the time through the methodology, because whilst there are some general principles, each system is unique, and constellations beautifully illuminate those unique aspects. For example, a relationship with money that goes back 9 decades. That's
Yeah.
just the sort of thing you will find out in a constellation. You may spend years trying to find out in a conversation.
That's a question that I had, John. I had the question for later, but maybe it's good to have it now. So, what would be the questions that you would ask to a leader? I'm thinking of this company, 100 employees, more or less. That's the company was founded in 1929, and
Is this a real case?
it's a real case.
Yes.
Yeah, it's a real case. It's a client.
Okay.
And it's a very nice company, and but they have this thing of low margins. Being profitable is something that they struggle
Hmm.
with, and they have been struggling with this for a long time.
Hmm.
And it has a lot of side effect in terms of having enough money to invest in the future, to increase salaries, to
Hmm.
and people are, I think, a lot of things are really good going in the right way in the company, but there's this glass ceiling that they
Hmm.
cannot go through,
Hmm.
and there's another difficulty in this company about business development. It seems difficult for sales people to find their place in the company or to be heard. And what would be
Hmm.
the questions that you would ask to that leader if you had
Is
to
this
meet
the
him?
same system that had the 90-year-old
Yeah,
90 years ago?
exactly.
Yes. Oh,
Yeah,
okay, right.
exactly.
Interesting.
Same.
Yeah. So I would say the first thing to look at in that sort of situation, well, first of all, is to tune into the energy field of the system. And as you started describing it, your voice went deeper and quieter. And I almost sensed, and this is what I would feed back to a client, a sense of sadness or loss somewhere. And so that would be the first thing is embodied resonance. It feels there's something heavy that system is carrying. But in a more theoretical level, I would say the first thing to look at is to wonder about systemic loyalties. In other words, well, what's a way of asking about that would be who would be pleased to see the system so stuck and the difficulty with money?
Who would be pleased?
Who would be
Oh,
pleased? Yeah. Who
wow.
would be secretly pleased to see? In other words, imagine a forefather or foremother
Mm.
looking down on the organization, perhaps 2 generations, because this is 1929, so they're nearly 100 years old. So that's
Yeah,
3 generations. So let's
that's more
say,
than 90 years. Yeah.
yeah. So where did the stuckness begin?
Mm.
Is it as they look towards the 100th anniversary, or has it been stuck for 30 years?
Mm.
And then find out what happened before that started. And the way of asking about that is not what happened, but who would be pleased to see you stuck?
Mm.
Or who would be pleased to see you flourish?
Mm.
And usually there's a long silence, and then somebody in the team, often somebody who's been there longer than anybody else, will say, huh, that's a very strange question, but the person that comes up for me when you ask that question is, and then they name somebody, usually somebody who's left the system in a difficult way or died while they were still employed or were part of the family system, and somebody or something that hasn't been included, honored, and given their dignity back. And they will creates a kind of hidden unconscious loyalty to not being more successful than they were able to be. So that probably sounds a bit strange, but again, that's the sort of thing constellations surface beautifully.
Mm.
Um, yeah, Does that make any sense?
Yeah, of course.
Mm.
That
Mm.
makes sense. That makes a lot of sense.
I mean, for this particular
Yeah,
client,
it
yeah,
does. The
yeah,
thing that is not easy is sometimes in the room you don't have the memory of what happened so long ago, and it's
yes,
sometimes not easy to. Sometimes it's very easy, as you said. Someone says, "Yeah, I
yes,
know, I remember."
yes,
It makes me think of one person, but sometimes they don't remember. They feel something, but it's hard to
yes,
put a face or a name. So,
exactly. But 4 weeks later, when you see them again, they say, because it's like you put a little drop of a homeopathic drop into the system with the question. The question works its way through the field of the system, and somebody emails you, or you see them 5 or 6 weeks later, and they say, we've been thinking about that question,
uh-huh.
and there's
Yeah,
a step towards the answer,
yeah,
or it sets off a different train of thinking that's more systemic, i.e., it's looking at the invisible dynamics as you articulated beautifully in your introduction that are hidden in between the visible elements of the system, the people and other parts of the system.
yeah,
And, I might also ask a more sort of obvious question like what patterns do you notice? What are the strongest repeating patterns in this system that you
yeah,
notice repeating over these 3 generations?
yeah,
And one of them, I imagine, is we don't like sales.
yeah,
And
yeah,
so,
yes,
that could be a new pattern or it could be an old pattern. If it's a new pattern, it's related to something probably more recent. You'd be surprised how many, especially artisan companies that produce something beautiful and valuable, have a sort of a dislike of showing off about it or selling it or talking about it too loudly. And
yeah,
that can be a loyalty to a founder or more likely a loyalty to a whole system of not making yourself too big. And that could
uh-huh.
be the original family.
Oh, yeah. Oh, that seems so important. Yeah.
There's sort of false modesty about
That,
what you do.
yeah. That could have been in my own peacock tail.
Right.
Don't
Well,
make yourself too big.
okay. Well, we, as coaches, you
Yeah.
know this already. We all attract clients that are a mirror of our own
Yeah.
shadow.
Yeah.
So if you have that dynamic in you, you'll energetically attract, without it ever being named explicitly, clients with exactly the same shadow that they haven't integrated yet.
Yeah.
So perhaps your job is to help your clients find their voice.
Yeah. I remember, it's so true. I remember some years ago, I was working on myself, about my relationship with my father. And a few weeks, don't remember, or months, but I think it was a few weeks later, a client came, a CEO of a family company, and the topic of the coaching was help me deal with my father, who is the owner of is my boss.
Perfect. Yes. The
Well,
system always brings you a client you're nearly ready for.
yeah, I was nearly ready. That's true at that time. Yeah,
The other, just before we move off this client, there's something I'm still with the sort of heaviness. And so another question pops up for me is why carry on trading at all? Why bother?
why
It's
bother? Yeah,
it seems a lot of effort, and no one is interested in supporting sales or marketing. It
yeah.
sounds, if you treat everything as information, that sounds to me like the system saying, "Can we stop, please? We're exhausted," or just,
Ah,
"Can you just stop?" The
okay.
bravest decision you can make as a founder, particularly if it's a family business with 3 decades, three generations behind it, is to say, our work is going to come to a close, or this, what we do is no longer required, and we'll respectfully find a way of thanking everybody and closing it.
Or yeah, okay.
And
Or
that's not a sort of suggestion people expect you to make. But of course, it's not a recommendation, it's just a question. What about if you just stopped?
Mm.
this? Why exhaust yourselves? Why is everybody burning out
Yeah.
to try and keep this going? There isn't enough money. There isn't the will for sales. Have you considered just stopping? And that may give permission to bring things to a close or to inject a whole new lease of life into it, depending which way they choose to go.
Hmm. Interesting. So, John, we've started with the last question. So
Ah,
that
always
that's
good.
yeah. And let me return to a question that I really want to ask you. Why a systemic approach, according to you, is important in the business world? Why is it important? What does it bring? And particularly for family business or founders, you've said that a little bit, but would you like to add something or?
Yeah. I think, we live in a individualistic orientated world, don't we? Everything is about what an individual can achieve and the force of will and goal setting and all of that good stuff. And it all has a place. But if there's something in the system that hasn't been resolved, integrated, included, named, acknowledged, then no amount of good intentions will resolve or move the system forward. The case you were just discussing sounds like one of those. They will have tried all the obvious things and considered borrowing more money and et cetera, et cetera.
Hmm.
But that's not really the problem, and it's certainly therefore not the solution. So I think why it's particularly important in family businesses is that unless you take a generational view of leadership and of organizational health, you're only ever trying to, sort of fix the present. And in every organization, but super important in, excuse me, family businesses, is to look to the past first in order to leave it where it belongs
Hmm.
in the past.
Very interesting.
Then you
Hmm.
can be present
Yeah.
and move into the future.
Yeah.
So I often quote this quote to my clients. Every client I've ever worked with, family businesses, founders, even large corporates. There's a woman called Wilma Mankiller, which is a great name. Um, she was the first female chief of a Cherokee Nation
Okay.
tribe.
Yeah.
She was a friend of Obama's. She died in, I think, about 10 years ago. And she said in Iroquois society, leaders are required to consider 7 generations in the past and 7 generations in the future when making decisions that affect people.
Uh-huh.
And that has become something of a mantra for me, for my own business and also for my clients, that if you think multi-generationally, then things tend to go well.
Uh-huh.
So I suppose, the reason for that is that the focus of systemic work is on an understanding of the importance of the human need to belong in systems. And if you take belonging into account in your leadership, and in particular, you take care of the cycle of joining, belonging, and leaving, then you're creating the conditions for organizational health.
Hmm.
And there's nothing that founders like less than when people leave,
Hmm.
because founders are often trying to create a family
Yeah.
on their own terms this
Yeah.
time. So founders often come from complex families where they couldn't find their place or belonging. And so they create a founder-led or a family business. This time they say to themselves, we'll get it right. I'll take care of everybody. I'll show you how you should have led me. I'll show you how you should have treated money. I'll show you how you should have treated people. So these are systemic uh, perspectives on well, organizational health in general, but particularly with founders and family businesses. So, yes, I'm not sure if I answered your question there, but
Very interesting. Yeah. Would you have an example of something that a founder, maybe when, I mean, we understand through what you said that a lot of founders are maybe unconsciously trying to fix something from their family of origin in the business, and
yes.
unconsciously creating a new family. Would you have an example of something that y- came
Well, the
that
thing
way?
is that if you're trying to, well, so let's go a bit deeper into that. Very often, founders have rejected their same-sex parent or somebody else in the family. The problem with, and so they say, well, this wasn't good enough. You weren't good enough for me. I'll show you how to do it better.
So if I'm a man, my father wasn't good
Yes,
enough, for example.
yes. And
Yeah.
so you'll show him
Yeah.
sort of
I'll show
semi,
you, yeah,
I'll
how
show
it
you
is. Yeah. Yeah.
how you should
Right.
have taken
Yeah.
care of people. In other words, how you should have taken care of me.
Yeah.
And so these, I call them life sentences. They're unspoken phrases that are like a contract you make with yourself. And one of them is, I'll show you, get manifest. Um, and the problem with that is that everything that you exclude or reject in one system gets represented in the other system. So I don't know, let's say you have a difficult relationship where you come from a family of six brothers and sisters, for example. I don't, just in case you're wondering.
Yeah.
And you find yourself setting up a company where you appoint a leadership team and there are five members of the team and you as the founder. Unconsciously, you recreate the
The
family,
family.
including the sister that you couldn't bear or the brother that you always fought with. There they are around the family business or the founder led. No members of the family need to be there. It's like a constellation, but it's unconscious constellation. So you're not aware that you're doing it, but you're repeat. We all repeat patterns, and those patterns, as we both know, come from our origin story, from our family, our experience of school, our experience of authority, of community, culture, religious systems that we belonged in. So those are sorts of things which, as you said in your lovely introduction, nothing to do with balance sheet or cash flow or
Yeah.
sales or
Yeah.
what you do. And they're particularly strong, I think, in founders and family businesses. When they're not strong, when things go well in a family business or a founder-led organization, people like you and I, coaches and consultants, will probably never meet them because they
Yeah.
don't need
Yeah.
our help.
Support. Yeah.
So I think, yeah, there's so many examples come to mind. Another key one, just sort of staying at the big level, is that I think as a coach of founders, I notice I'm often accompanying people who are not accompanied as a child. So lots of founders were only children or felt like they were. So the feeling of that you don't quite fit into your family leaves you feeling unaccompanied as a child, and therefore you look for good company as you get older to support you, walk alongside you as you create this beautiful new system around this idea you've come up with, which of course is brilliant until you struggle with the organizational dynamics and the difficulties of leadership.
So the coach could be, in a way, on your side, the person that you missed as a child, and you missed, and it could be a kind of parent figure or parent face that.
Yes. I mean,
Yeah.
this podcast, if I understand it, is for founders and leaders of family businesses, not for
Mm.
coaches. But yeah, we could do a separate one on that. But yes, as a
Yeah.
coach, you need to
Yeah.
be very careful, as you know I've
Yeah.
shared before, not well, first of all, to consider who do I represent for this client
In the
and
system.
and
Yeah.
how can I stay separate from that
Yeah.
and just stay as me, John Whittington, just as a coach, just traveling alongside for a while, accept all the projections and use it all as information, but don't get entangled. Now, coaches who don't know about that often become part of the problem
Mm.
and they almost become part of the family,
Mm.
and then everyone's in trouble because you
Yeah.
get entangled. The last thing you need is somebody to walk alongside you who secretly, unconsciously wants to join you.
Yeah. Very interesting.
Anyway, that's a slightly different subject. But yeah, as
Yeah,
you said, I
that's
mean, family businesses get set up for all sorts of reasons to avoid something that's difficult in the family, to heal something in
yeah,
the family, to create a safe belonging,
yeah.
or to create a place for conflict that we can't have in the family. It's too painful, so we'll have it in the business.
Oh, oh, it makes me
And
think of a company with a lot of conflicts. Yeah,
yeah, or the other way around. All the
yeah.
conflicts in the family. And so we'll set up a business and there will all be
No conflicts at
there'll
all.
be no conflicts at
No
all. So
confrontation.
neither
Yeah,
neither systems usually do well, really.
yeah, of course. So, as a founder or as a family business manager, what are the key dynamics that you should look at, that you should be aware of, to make sure you're not stuck somewhere?
Yeah, well, I think, goodness, there are so many. That's why I'm writing a book about it.
Yeah,
The first thing to be aware of is projections, I think, onto you, a bit
yeah,
like I was just saying about coaches. But, you know, the word founder is a very loaded word. It has a lot of resonance, especially now. The whole world seems to be turning to, creator economy, um, founders, entrepreneurs, solopreneurs in particular, influencers. They're all a kind of founder. And, as big business gets consolidated into fewer and fewer and larger businesses, there are masses of other businesses emerging. And when you're called a founder, it has an impact. I mean, if I ask you, who do you think of when I say the word founder? What's the first
yeah,
association?
yeah.
What,
Yeah. That's wow. That's wow. You're a founder. Wow.
yes,
Yeah.
it's sort
Wow.
of almost
You're the
as
hero of today, you know. And
yes,
in the Middle Ages, it was the knights with the sword, but today you are the knights with the sword. You don't have the sword.
yeah,
You have dollars and or euros, and you conquer the world.
that's it. So it
In a
comes
way.
with a lot of baggage. It could be
Mm.
a spiritual founder of a religious movement. I mean, you could say Jesus Christ was a founder of Christianity.
He certainly was in a
Allah,
way. Yeah.
Buddha,
Yeah.
they're founders. Steve Jobs, Richard Branson, the word founder has got a lot of energy to it. And then there's founders of countries, George Washington, the founder of
So be
America.
careful with the projections on
Big,
you.
yeah.
Yeah.
So if you say I'm a founder, people, oh, right, you're almost like a god. No, I'm just a human being, probably coming from great complexity, trying to create a safe space for myself. It's a very
Yeah.
different way of framing it.
Yeah.
So I think the first thing is to think about what are people projecting onto me and how can I, soften those projections by being real with them, being really real and not falling for the sort of seduction of being a founder, of being all powerful, because then you end up more isolated than you were. The very reason many founders start is so they can create a safe belonging.
Mm.
And then they find themselves repeating the dynamic in their family and school or wherever and feel just
Yeah.
as lonely as they did before.
And being a founder is becomes your identity, I
Yes.
imagine. And when you present yourself with friends, you say, yeah, I'm a founder of this. And then
Yeah.
you cannot make a difference between you and this
Yeah.
part of your identity that is only a part at the
Yes.
end. Yeah. Yeah.
Very strong
Yeah.
identifications.
Yeah.
And I'm sure we'll come to that later. But when a founder needs to leave, that's one of the top reasons why it's so hard. It's become who they are. Persona and person have become merged, and there's no separation anymore. I've worked with several founders who would fall into that category where asking them to, being asked to step back, or they tell me they want to step back, very, very difficult if it's like stepping back from yourself. How can I stop being myself? And this is where constellations are useful to separate physically with visual mapping and representation me and my business, or me and my persona, or me and my alter ego, whatever they call it.
Yeah, it makes me
Because,
think of a founder that I knew, and when he retired, I mean, he doing a lot of sport in very good health, and as a few months after retiring, he just had a cancer, and
mhm.
yeah, and probably no link between the two situations of
Oh,
this person. We don't know. We're never
there
sure.
probably is a
We're not
strong
doctors
link.
here, but
Yeah, yeah.
it's
Well, because
surprising.
it's like dying for many founders.
Mm.
You're asking me to die if you want me to step out of my company, because that's all I know. So, you know, this is why several generations later, it's important for CEOs or employees in a what was originally a founder-led organization, and every organization in the world was originally started by somebody or a group of people, to respect the price that the founder paid that creates the system that I've now got a job in. So yeah, um, yeah,
So
it's
that's
a
the
big
first
thing.
one,
So that's the
projections.
first thing is
Yeah,
resisting the projections. Yes.
yeah,
Um, so the other thing is to understand what supports organizational health and systems, and that your job as a founder, I think, is to adopt the stance, principles, and practices of systemic work. And you mentioned my book earlier. I've written about that for coaches before, and is the whole basis of the trainings. And in very short summary, that means keeping a distance connected to what we were just talking about, to your own system, getting in what I call a systemic helicopter, so you can get up above the system and see the system from a distance, so you can see the whole. Seeing wholes, WHOLES,
yeah, yeah.
is is in one word what a systemic perspective is, and taking care of the health of the whole. Our job as founders is to support flow and coherence and to facilitate that flow and coherence in the whole system, all parts of it, all at the same time. And that's a lot easier if you understand how systems work. So we've already sort of talked about this, but very briefly
Yeah,
for
that's
your
good.
list.
That's important. Take the time. Yeah, that's important for our
Yeah,
listeners.
yes. The three principles that I'm talking about are time, place, and exchange. So time is about looking back in order to clear the difficulties, events, successes, joys, and failures of the past, integrate them, see them, give them all the place, and then you can be present in the present and move into the future.
Mm.
Um, Place is about things like noticing that excluded, whatever and whoever you exclude, whether in your family of origin or in the business, especially when you in startup mode, will get represented in the business later. And this is the principle of place, that everybody has an equal right to a safe and respected place in the system. So this is clearly related to the deepest human need to belong. And so taking care of the cycle of joining, belonging, and leaving is super, super important.
Yeah. So when you fire someone brutally, or as it happens sometimes in some companies, it can leave a wound or something like that in the system. It's what you're saying here.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Where you leave a dynamic in the system, somebody else will try and occupy that role and they won't be able to. They'll be sitting in what we call the systemic ejector seat, because the way that somebody left was not respectfully done. What they contributed was not acknowledged. And um, even worse, you paid them lots of money to go away and not talk to the press. those three things together will combine to create a very difficult energy to occupy for the next person who tries
Yeah.
to,
Yeah.
however much you pay them or however brilliant they are.
Yeah.
So that's a good example of a systemic
Yeah.
dynamic. Yeah.
Mm.
And
Yeah.
then the third principle is the principle of exchange, the principle of giving and receiving. And in family businesses in particular, love and money are often very mixed up. For example, the parents in a family business, the first generation, let's say, may make their children shareholders in the company, but they haven't got a role, or they give them money to placate them or to keep them out of the business. This all makes things worse and worse, and the children get weaker. The next generation of leaders can't lead. The whole system can grind to a halt. I mean, this is a huge subject, and it reminds me of, um, you know, the importance of when you've got a hierarchy in a family that's different to the hierarchy in the family business.
Yeah.
You can be sure that there will be trouble. So if the youngest sibling, for example, is appointed as the CEO without due process, and I mean respectful, dignified, systemic language and process to uh, communicate really clearly why that decision's been made, you'll end up with a couple of generations later, maybe, or even sooner, fighting siblings in both the family and the business. So, but family businesses tend to think that they can pay their own children and grandchildren off. We'll give you
Okay.
lots of money
Okay.
to stay out of the business. Or look, we're going to make you a shareholder and you can benefit for life as from the dividends, as a way of not doing or saying something else that makes it very complicated. And here we're in one of the most tender, complex areas of succession and family business transmission. And this again is why I love working in this area, because yeah, it's an art, not a science. It requires, to go slowly and lots of nuance and systemic insight and information. And also why I love constellations as a method for surfacing what would be a better way of doing this. And whether you're working with a client or a whole family at the same time using tabletop constellations, or they come to a workshop, it's a very powerful way and a very respectful way of clarifying what hierarchy needs to be respected, what hierarchy needs to be included in the business, and how can we move forward. Succession is both the most important thing to pay attention to for a founder and a family business, and the most difficult to do well. So,
Yeah.
and like you, I'm sure I spend a lot
Ha.
of my time
Yeah.
post merger or post succession
Succession.
trying to unravel what's been done badly and put it back in a more respectful order.
What would you do then to prepare a succession and concretely as a CEO and to mm, run or organize this succession? Is there, I mean, a few key things? I mean, it's complex, of course, but a few
Yeah.
things that come to your mind.
Well, the,
Uh,
the reason that succession often doesn't work is because money is prioritized over love.
oh my God, yeah.
And, in a family business, even though they're all shouting at each other, let's say, what they're really doing is protecting the love that exists between them. It's a matter of blood and love, if you like. And the importance of honoring the price that the founders, let's say it's a man and a woman, just as a sort of generic heteronormative example, a man and a woman, a married couple, start a business together. Although, of course, that's a whole subject, because who started it and whose idea was it? That's a
Mm,
hierarchy in itself, but for another time.
yeah,
And they decide they want to pass it on. And let's say, just to keep the example simple, they haven't got any children, and so they pass it on to an employed
Mm.
CEO. Now, that employed CEO is taking on a very delicately balanced system that, frankly, is quite hard to do unless you've got a systemic awareness and touch in your leadership, and you understand how systems work. And the most important, and just the starting point really for this process, is to spend more time than you imagine would be useful, honoring and acknowledging what the founders started and how they started it, and really spending time with them. Tell me about your origin story. How did you decide to come together as a couple? How did you decide together to bring the business, how to, you know, their their baby in this example is the business. And that's
So asking a lot of questions and deep questions is a way to honor
yes,
yeah, the founders and the
and of
work and
course
the
asking those questions can be challenging in itself. And
yeah.
this is where somebody who's walking alongside that process can be very, very useful, because mostly they wouldn't think to do that themselves. They just go, oh, okay, you want me to take on the business, show me
Yeah.
the cash flow, show me the
Yeah.
sales. And
Yeah.
they've completely missed the point of
Yeah.
this is a much more delicate process than that. The business will take care of itself if you get this part right.
Yeah.
So, but more common perhaps is a family business that is transmitting, and let's say they've got three children, and one of them is really keen to take on the business and the others aren't. That's very common. I've seen that many
Yeah.
times in
Yeah.
constellations or some combination like
Yeah.
that. So giving everybody their right and true place in the family and returning to them the dignity of that true place, and seeing that in a constellation, in a visual map represented in space, is very, very powerful because it's an embodied process. And
So concretely, what should you do? Should you organize a constellation with a coach
well,
to?
I, I think that is, I would say that, as it were, but yes, I think it's not just a conversation. A way of visualizing it is really important. But well, let's take another example. The
Yeah.
founders died 20 years ago, and you're the third generation CEO. How might you take on the business in a way that it will prosper? So not only have you got to attend to all the things we've just touched on, but you've also got to establish what was the original purpose and intention of the founders in setting up this business. Because if you try and change it without permission, you will get unstuck. And then perhaps this is connected to the client question you described earlier, than the one coming up to its centenary. Um, an employed CEO will normally make the mistake that the invitation is to make it my own, as if I was the founder or as if it was my business. Well, yes and no. And the no part is, have you checked whether you have permission to do that energetically? Um, and how can you do that? Well, one is, the ritual nature of a constellation, where this employed CEO comes to a constellation workshop in a group of 20 strangers, and I would ask them to choose somebody in the group to represent the founder or founders. And they say, oh, I never knew them, but I've got a sense of them. Okay, it doesn't matter. Obviously, you didn't know them. They died before you were born sometimes. Just choose two people in the workshop and ask those two people to stand up, and then ask the CEO to stand in front of them, and just with no words, just to look at them, just to look into their eyes and look from one to the other, and find a distance that feels true and respectful. And then, as you know, because you've done several constellations yourself, the representatives for the founders will often surface something completely unexpected,
Yeah.
unexpected to me as a facilitator, to the group, to the CEO. And I don't know, I mean,
Yeah.
they might say anything like, we're so pleased to see you, or who the hell are you? Leave our company alone. What, whatever they say is usually very useful and very enlightening and changes something in the body and breath of the client. They might say something like, I'm so sorry to see that our grandchildren or great grandchildren are not the leaders of the
Yeah.
company.
Yeah.
So in other words, they're telling you, they're calibrating the level of permission you've got. And um, it might be that I would ask the actual CEO who's employed, who's standing there in this rather unusual way of working, but incredibly useful way of working, constellations, to ask them for permission to do things a bit differently than they did. Please smile on me if I take the business in this direction. I want to move into, I don't know, pharmaceuticals instead of just research or whatever.
Yeah.
And yeah,
And what you would add, because I've seen you several times doing that, John, is first you would ask the CEO to acknowledge, to the founders, that you are the founder, and I'm just, and thank you, and for the legacy or things like that, and that's the first part, and then of course what you just said, smile on me if I make other choices because the context has changed, the market has changed,
yes,
and the company, the legacy, and the company needs other choices today. Thank you for smiling at me or accepting that I'm
yes.
making other decisions today.
Or even I see I have no permission, and so I'll step out.
Yeah,
And even that, which sounds strange, but of course it may not be that they need to leave. It's just they need to step away from the direction they were traveling in.
mm,
Yeah, you're absolutely right. That's beautifully expressed. It's about acknowledging what the founders started, hearing from them about their original intention, and asking for permission. Quite often, the sheer impact of standing in front of the founders for a CEO or subsequent family member, maybe it's their great grandparents, is so profound just to
yeah,
stand there. They'll never forget that. And
yeah,
their leadership has changed in that moment because their whole body and breath has changed. They've gone into the past, seen it, honored it. Perhaps there's a bow of the head or a few words, and then they're able to turn to the future with a completely different view of what their job as a leader is. Very powerful, isn't it? I mean,
yeah. I've seen that. I remember a situation where the grandchild, she was talking to the founder. I mean, he was not alive anymore, but in the
mm,
constellation, she was,
mm,
and she had a lot of emotion,
mm,
acknowledging and thanking the founder and talking about the legacy and
yes.
how she's trying to give her best to make the company continue its journey. And,
It's sort of beyond words, isn't it? The
yeah,
privilege of witnessing that kind of process.
yeah,
So I think of it as transformation, as in coming out of the trance of it's all about the future and actually looking to the past and seeing what's in your peacock tail feathers of the organization, and in this case, your own family, and where the two are combined. It's super powerful. And often we just ignore the past and assume the past is in the past. It only stays in the past when we look at it, acknowledge it, honor it, and live fully in honor of what was and what was not possible for our ancestors.
mm. Do you have other things to do in the transmission process? Do you have
Mhm.
other things that you think should be done in the process? Because a lot of transmissions don't really work. I mean, I've
Yeah,
seen that many times,
why don't
many
they
times.
work? Can you give me an
Yeah.
example of why they don't work?
Yeah, they
Because
are,
what I've described is the foundations, and then yes, there are thousands of other things to do, but
yeah.
if you get the foundations right, they tend to be easier to sort out. But give me an example of what you're thinking of.
Yeah, I have a friend who bought a company some years ago, and the founder continued to work in the company as it is usually for a few months or maybe 1 year. It's part of the negotiation just to pass on all the projects and informations to the buyer, the new CEO. So he was not my friend was not part of the family. He was just buying the
Hmm.
company, and
Yeah.
it didn't work at all. I mean, it seemed
Hmm.
that he didn't have any authority in the company. That
Yeah.
people were not listening to him, and the problem was that the founder was still in the company, which is probably a big mistake. But at
Hmm.
the end, I mean, the business went down after 2 years, and he had to
Hmm.
sell the company because
Hmm.
he went bankrupt. And what
Hmm.
happened is that the seller, the founder, bought the company back. Imagine. Yeah,
I mean, to try and get an employed CEO to lead a company when the founder is still there is probably one of the hardest things you can try and do,
yeah,
unless the founder is, already established a good working relationship with them and they're very respectful of what the founder started. But yeah, I've worked with a guy a couple of years ago who bought and sold his own company 3 times
no.
because each time he couldn't bear that somebody else was A, telling him what to do during the earn-out period, and B, taking the business in a different direction. I mean, he was only in his late 40s, early 50s, so he could afford to do that. But it's that's why I've said on the front of my book, I haven't I always start with the front cover. It's
Yeah,
it says the origin story, an existential guide for solopreneurs, founders, family businesses, and those who walk alongside them, because it's existential for a founder to let go. As we
mm,
talked about earlier, it's,
mm,
like you're asking me to give away my child. No one's going to do that. So it's a very difficult move to make, but not impossible.
yeah.
And founders will do anything uh, to make sure it doesn't work. And you've just given an example of that. It's very expensive, but
Yeah,
the money doesn't matter because it's existential. It's about will I survive? Founders are
yeah,
very often really caught up at a very unconscious level with death anxiety, something that we all have as
yeah,
human
yeah,
beings. And death anxiety, um, there's a story going around for many years that Rupert Murdoch was asked what his plan for succession was 20 years ago. Do you know what his answer was?
no.
Not dying.
Great.
So that was a little glimpse of his unconscious that actually he thinks, as many founders do, I
Yeah,
have started something and it
yeah,
will last forever.
yeah,
Therefore, I will last forever.
yeah,
And then they're shocked to discover that they die too. So,
yeah. Wow.
yeah.
So let's come back to the three principles, and I'm wondering, what can you do as a CEO? You understand, for example, do you have to ask for a coach each time you have a problem in your organization? I mean, something is repeating
No.
in a
Yeah.
department of your organization, and what can you do?
Mm. Well,
Using a
yeah.
systemic role. What could you do as a CEO? Yeah, I mean, I
Yeah. I mean, that's why it's taking me a while to write this book because I've written a practitioner book before for
yeah.
practitioners like you
Yeah, for
and
coaches. Yeah,
coaches. Yeah. I'm trying to write the book actually for founders and family business
yeah,
leaders so they don't necessarily need to get a coach. So,
yeah, yeah,
I'm always trying
yeah,
to give it away. So,
yeah,
because I've been saying for 20 years, systemic knowledge should belong in the system, in the organization,
yeah.
not just with coaches.
Of course.
Our job is to make ourselves redundant, to teach leaders, particularly founders and family businesses, what these principles are and what a healthy organization feels and looks like. And that's, uh, sounds a bit reductionist. It's just three principles. It's a lot more than that. But I would say that um, one of the first things they can do is to pay attention to the cycle of joining, belonging, and leaving,
Yeah,
and to understand how important belonging is. And to do that, they need to perhaps look at their own relationship with belonging and understand why really they've set up this organization. What is it that they're trying to um, protect or get recognition for, or, you know, how are they attending to their belonging? How are their needs to belong in their family, school, and social system as a child and young adult met and not met? And what are the implications of that in the way you've set up your business
Today. Yeah,
today? Yeah.
yeah, yeah.
But that's the first thing, is to come back to your origin story. That's what I spend all my time doing as a coach, working with people at a very personal level in order to leave the leadership of their business to them, but with much greater sight and clarity. And the other thing, I mean, just one other example that I often use, uh, I call it an equilateral triangle constellation. You could just call it a triangle. I invite founders and leaders of family businesses to set up three bits of paper on the floor in a triangle, one with money written on it,
Yeah,
one with control written
yeah.
on it, and one with success. So to explore your relationship with control, money, and success, and to stand in that triangle and to move around from one bit of paper to another, noticing what your relationship with each of these is like. Because I'm always interested in how could I distill, I don't know, 25 years of, learning myself as a founder and a family business owner and coach of others. And this is one distillation. Joining, belonging, and leaving is another one. But if you can really explore your relationship with money, control, and success, and have that alive in your consciousness, things will tend to go a bit better for you as a founder because you'll then be able to lead with more clarity. If you don't know what your relationship with money is really about, what the dynamics are, it'll take over the business. If you don't know what your relationship with authority and control are, it will take over the business. If you don't have a clear definition of what success means for you as a human being and in your business, you'll probably never reach it. And
Okay.
you'll
Yeah.
burn out. You'll burn out trying to get somewhere that is all a bit hazy and foggy. And it's useful to clarify that. And
Yeah.
that's where, I hope this book and coaching and all of that
So
will be.
be aware of yourself, of where you come from, of your own patterns, of your own blind spots. Be aware of that. Do your work on yourself because it will give you a lot of freedom in the way you run your own organization.
Exactly.
Very interesting.
Yeah.
And imagine there's a problem on the floor in a particular department. They are, I don't know, producing a special type of product, and there's a repeating pattern, a repeating problem there. What would you do as a CEO? You would go there. I know a CEO who goes there and he's trained with constellations, but he goes there and he's what would you do? I mean, I imagine he would ask about joining, belonging, and
Well,
leaving in this department, the history of this
possibly.
department, and
Yeah.
and 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 how this department was founded at the beginning. Who was the founder, and what was the history, and what were maybe the accidents or the persons that left in a maybe brutal way
Yeah.
along the history, and
All
maybe
of those sound useful. I mean, it depends what the problem is. So
exactly.
let's staying at the generic level, I would say I would ask, to what question is this problem the answer?
Yeah.
So,
Very
you know,
interesting. Let's repeat it. To what question this problem
so
is
you say
trying to
there's a
answer.
problem in
Yeah,
a
yeah, yeah,
department. I
yeah.
don't know. Let's say
Problem of efficiency, or
efficiency. Yes.
yeah,
Okay.
yeah,
So there's a consistent pattern of inefficiency.
yeah,
Okay. So now I know it's about efficiency. I might ask two questions. One would be, um, what's the question to which inefficiency is the answer?
mm,
It's a sort of tautological question which
yeah,
confuses people. They go, "Sorry, what do you mean?"
yeah,
And you just leave them with it, and it could be, as I say, days or weeks later. They go, "Oh, I know what it is." Or who would be pleased to see you being so, as you describe, inefficient? Like, oh
yeah,
well, the previous boss who left
yeah,
in a terrible way,
yeah,
and she she'd be really pleased because secretly she wanted to slow down our work pace and work less. She burnt out, or whatever the story is. I don't know.
Yeah.
I'm sort of making up things that it could possibly be, but if there's yeah, it depends on the question. Obviously, they aren't just sort of random answers. They've got to be in the field of the question. So if you
Yeah.
get a bit more specific about the
Yeah, of
question,
course.
it's
It's
easier.
yeah, its situation is unique, so
Yeah,
it's
yeah.
hard to be.
But
Yeah.
if you're looking at if you looking systemically as a systemically orientated leader, your first thing you're looking at is what are the patterns? What patterns are there, and what do they serve? What are they in service of?
Mm.
What's inefficiency in service of? And well, actually, it means, none of us get burnt out like the previous
Oh
team
yeah.
did.
Oh
Oh,
yeah.
okay. Yeah. So it's in service of staying healthy. Thank
Yeah,
you.
yeah.
Yeah, great.
Staying alive
How
in a
could
way. Yeah.
you stay
Yeah.
alive and
Yeah.
healthy and
Yeah.
be maybe 10% more efficient? Oh,
Yeah.
well, we've got loads of ideas about that. Now you've acknowledged what the hidden dynamic was behind the pattern. So,
Very
yeah,
interesting.
it's a good example.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's just a different way of looking, whereas in many organizations, say, well, there's inefficiency. Right. Work them harder, pay
Yeah.
them less, or pay
Yeah.
them more, or
Yeah.
put a different manager in, or fire
Or
them, or they're all binary
hire a consultant
answers.
to
You
teach
hire
them
another
how to
blooming
work with
consultant.
it,
Yeah,
yeah,
get them
more
a
efficiently.
coach.
Yeah. Yeah.
And yeah, if you get a systemic coach, then they'll ask sort of strange questions about patterns, which is usually much more productive than how can I coach you to be more efficient? Mm.
And much more respectful to
Much more respectful to what
people.
is.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Big subject, isn't it? This
So
is what.
it's what you're saying, John, is that founders and family CEOs or family business CEOs would have great interest, or would be very useful for them to gain to have this systemic approach and to develop that and to how much time would that take? I mean, in a role, in a typical
Mhm.
founder's role,
Mm.
or family business CEO's role.
Mm.
I mean,
Well, this is the great problem, isn't it? Is that,
is it?
I'm
Yeah,
busy running a business. How can I
yeah.
take on this perspective?
Because I met this guy, and he said no, but that's my main role. I mean, he's maybe
Mm.
an original guy, maybe a very special guy, maybe,
Mm.
but he said, yeah, I've delegated, I've given all most of my tasks, and I spend time, I've delegated most of my tasks, and I spend time listening to the system. And when there's
Mm.
a problem somewhere, I go deep. I go on the floor and I talk to people and I try to understand
Mm.
where the system is stuck here and what's
Wonderful.
happening. And
Wonderful. Are you coaching him?
no,
No, he doesn't
no,
need a coach.
he doesn't need a coach. I mean,
Exactly. Yeah.
yeah, no, I don't think he needs a coach anymore. He probably worked
Wonderful.
with a coach in the past, but
Yes.
not me.
Job done. Well,
Yeah,
I mean, I said it earlier and I'll say it again because I really believe this, that the knowledge we have as systemic coaches and facilitators needs to be transmitted into the leadership of
yeah,
organizations,
yeah,
teams, family businesses, founders, solopreneurs, because it's they really who have the power and authority to look systemically. But
yeah,
yes, your question is a good one. How do you, in the busy day-to-day of running an organization, or even being a solopreneur, how do
yeah,
you have time for the systemic perspective? Or,
yeah,
my book is a tiny contribution to that huge, huge question. And your work and lots of other people's work is all really important because that's the job, I think, not
yeah.
to protect the world of coaching and consultancy, but to pass our knowledge into the systems
Exactly,
themselves.
exactly.
And a fast and rather effective way of doing that is using constellations
Yeah,
because it's embodied and you can't unsee what you see in a constellation. You can't not experience it. So it's a whole body way of learning, and embodied learning is the kind that stays. longest.
And how could you learn as a CEO? I mean, you're not going to do the full practitioner
No, you don't need to learn
process,
how to
or
become a
yeah.
systemic coach, but you need
How do you
to,
learn?
it
I
can
mean,
be
of course,
useful.
they can read your book in a few months. Maybe I
Mm.
don't know when is going to when can we
Early next year, I think,
early next
2027.
year.
Yeah,
Okay,
early
okay,
2027,
okay. But how can you learn? Waiting for your book? How can we learn?
yeah. Come to the workshops.
Yeah, so you should come to a workshop like the one you're doing in Paris in June. That is
Yes, so I am.
unfortunately complete. I mean, it's full. There's no more
Is
place.
it?
But
Oh,
yeah,
okay.
I
I
heard
didn't
that
know
this
that.
morning.
Right.
But yeah, and it's about founders and family business. So
Yeah.
you could definitely, as a founder or as a CEO, come to, or
Hmm.
as a family business member, just come to one of these workshops. That's what you're saying. What else could you do? You could work with a coach and
Work with a
look at what they
systemic
do.
coach. Yeah.
Yeah, look at what
Yeah.
they do and learn. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Work with you.
Thank you, John.
Here's a commercial break.
That's a commercial break.
Thomas,
Thank
systemic
you.
coach.
Yeah.
Unexpectedly available. Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know. It's a nice, I suppose that's why I'm writing the book, because there are so many people, so many, many more people now becoming founders, that I feel like a systemic perspective, i.e., how does life actually work? What does being human mean in an organizational setting? um, that you've founded yourself. What does it mean? Goodness knows there's enough need for it in the wider organizational field of, corporates and large businesses that are not connected to, at least explicitly, to a founder or family business. But my specialism increasingly these days is this particular sector, because I've really only worked for founders and family businesses. All my coaching clients now, for the last 10 years at least, are founders, solopreneurs, founders, and family businesses. And the more I work in it, more complex I realize it is. And I have never got all the answers, but I have access to a methodology which will always answer the next question.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it's underpinned, it's an applied philosophy, constellations. It's underpinned by some principles which we've touched lightly on today.
Yeah. So what we're saying, John, today at the end of this episode is that this systemic approach is so important that you cannot outsource it in a way. You need to have it inside your company. You need to learn as a founder or as a CEO. You need to have this skill on board because I mean it's useful every day, or it could be useful so often that I mean you need to have it with you, and it will help you solve a lot of situations and create the conditions for your company to be in good health. You know, respecting the principles that you talked about, time, place, and exchange. Yeah, and the balance of exchange in your company. Yeah,
Yes, I think that phrase, creating the conditions for organizational health, is a lovely way of summing it up. That's what my work, I feel, is in service of. How can we how can I support you as a founder or family business leader, create the conditions for the organization to flow and have coherence?
yeah.
And
So,
that's a huge
yeah,
question.
yeah. Yeah, so that your company can become more alive and yeah, and free to go, and not stuck with things from the past that are invisible, but
Yeah.
sometimes are there and are slowing you down, or sometimes even blocking you. Yeah, to move forward. Yeah,
Invisible ties are the strongest thread. There's a
yeah,
famous quote, a Nietzsche quote.
yeah.
It's so true. Yeah.
Well, John, it's been more than an hour now, and thank you. It's yeah. I didn't see the time flowing, but it's time to end this conversation. And is there a question that I didn't ask and that is missing here, or
Oh, I'm
just
sure.
trying to
You
have
want to
you
make it even
with me
longer?
with one more minute, just trying.
I think there are so many questions,
You
aren't
could
there?
just
And
say no.
I think there are so many questions that one could ask, and it's a process of just continuous questions for founders and family businesses, and that's where this work is so useful because it can take you out of your head and into the body of the work and the field of the system. And yeah, I mean, there's a quote by the former Estee Lauder. Is that how you say it's Estee Lauder?
Oh,
See,
Esther Lauder. Yeah. Okay.
yes, the
Lauder. Yeah.
CEO of
Yeah.
that company,
Yeah.
Leonard
I-
Lander, who retired many years ago. He said there are two things that can destroy a family business: the family or the business.
yeah.
I like that because it's sort of got, with a light touch, it says, yeah, there are dynamics in both the business and the family. And my focus is on the origin story of both. And I think if you're looking in that area, you'll resolve most things in the present by resolving and integrating what's not resolved in the past.
Thank you, John, from my heart. Thank you
Hmm.
so much for
You're welcome, Thomas.
spending this time with me today. It's great. I'm sure that our listeners have had a great moment too. Thank you for joining this episode. You who are still listening to us right now after an hour, more than an hour. It has been a long episode, but very interesting. And I wish every one of you a wonderful journey with this systemic approach in your organizations. Thank you. Have a good day and talk to you soon. Bye bye.